Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report, Friday, June 30th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi, and this is the second 5th month and the 7th day of that month by the heavenly calendar. As I've explained, we have 13 months in the heavenly calendar this year. We have two 5th months and to make 13, and this is the second of those two 5th months. Let's go to the weather right away. Let's see here, I had this up. The weather right now, as I look at the radar over the Colorado Rockies, where the king is trekking. Today's the third day of his trek, and it seems that the weather there this morning is in the mid to upper 30s, and so it getting down close to freezing during the night, and There may have been I see some rain on the radar, but it may have traveled north, kind of north and around, circling around the King's location. I'm not sure. But there may have been some rain there during the night. But today, expecting partly sunny skies for his final day of the trek today. And we pray that he will have victory today, and that he'll be able to bring back many stories of that victory. And also pray for the safety of him, his family, and for everyone who is with him on that trek. Here in the Cheonryugung, it's comparatively warm, 71 degrees this morning, and it's partly cloudy, and we're expecting it to get up to 87 degrees, quite a warm 87 degrees with a few strong afternoon thunder showers. All right, let's go to the our Rima this morning. I'm in a book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 9. And I want to read it from the King James Version. Chapter 9, verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. And then a Rima for the Cheonseonggyeong this morning. And this is in Book 6, Chapter 1, page 845. You have to know how to find people of misfortune and strive to raise them up to your standard. When you do this, the entire world may oppose you and treat you with contempt, but God in heaven will admire and protect you. It's wonderful, Rima, that God has given us this day. You have to know how to find people of misfortune and strive to raise them up to your standard. When you do this, the entire world may oppose you and treat you with contempt, but God in heaven will admire and protect you. I'm reminded, as I read this, of how Father often said that when choosing a partner for your child, and the blessing partner for your child, you should choose someone who is in a lower position than you. Most people, of course, they do the opposite. They want to, if they're looking for a bride for their son, they want a bride from a rich family, maybe, or if they're looking for a husband for their daughter, they want someone, with a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. I once commented to a parent, a first-generation parent, who was looking for a partner for their child to be blessed. And I commented saying, we in the first generation are really hypocritical, because when we were blessed, we went into that room to be matched by Father. And when we went in, we were willing to accept anyone that Father chose for us, even if that person was missing an arm or a leg or anything else. We were willing to accept that person simply because that would be the person that Father chose for us. But I said, now that we're looking for partners for our children, well, we want the partner to have all their arms and legs. That's a basic requirement. And then in addition to that, we want them to, be a certain height or be a certain nationality or race or have a certain education level, a certain standard of income. We put all these conditions on. We accepted our partner unconditionally. But now that we're looking for partners for our children, we have a whole list of conditions. I think this verse here speaks against that, saying that that you should be looking to find someone who is below, who is a person of misfortune. It says, people of misfortune. To find someone who is a lower than yourself, who is not as fortunate as yourself, and then to raise that person up to your standard. When you do this, the entire world may oppose you and treat you with contempt. Yeah, people will treat you as a fool, but God in heaven will admire and protect you. So those are my thoughts on that this morning. And getting back to Daniel, this is an interesting passage, and this prophecy of Daniel in verse 9 that begins at verse 24 and goes to verse 27. I did a little bit of research this morning, and it turns out that many Christians consider this to be a prophecy of the coming of the Messiah, coming of Jesus, and his crucifixion and the destruction of Jerusalem following that. And there's a whole way of calculating the years, and they say, where it says a week actually here in the King James, but some Christians interpret that to mean not a week, but 7 years. And Daniel says that there are going to be 70 7-year periods. And they say they can actually calculate that in a way that shows that the Messiah is going to be crucified in AD 30, etc., etc. Of course, actually, Jesus was not born in AD 1. He was born, I think biblical scholars pretty much agree that Jesus was actually born between BC 4 and 6, I think it is. In other words, the people who set the beginning of the calendar thought they were setting it at the birth of Jesus, but actually got it wrong. And now I think pretty much scholars agree that Jesus was born a few years before the first year of the of AD. So that sort of messes up their calculations. But here, I don't want to go into that, because I believe that when we choose a Rhema, God is speaking to us, in all the Bible commentaries and so forth and so on, not through all that, but he's speaking to us specifically through this. And here, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. What's happening this week? Well, he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. The king and his family and many other Blessed Central families are in Colorado this week, and they are going through this very difficult trek that they trained for, and they may or may not have trained sufficiently for. And I know the king was a bit apprehensive about the amount of training that had been accomplished prior to the event, and he was wondering whether it would be sufficient, because they trekked 9 miles the first day, 12 miles yesterday, and I'm not sure how many miles they have to go through today. Today is the third of their 3-day trek, 35 miles in all. So 9 plus 12 is 21, and then 14, I guess they would have to cover today. That's quite a long distance to be able to cover today. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Really, because of the Han mother's failure, the overspreading of abominations shall make it desolate. The entire world is to become go through a judgment and be desolate, and even till the consummation. Well, consummation would be the consummation of God's promise of the coming of Cheonryuk, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So eventually, the Cheonryuk will be poured out. The grace of God's grace of Cheonryuk will be poured out on this desolate world. Just a minute, please. I'm sorry. I think Mrs. Kong was sitting over there, and I thought she needed my help. But she's okay. So this is a verse that I would like to contemplate on and pray about during the day, and I hope that you will also do that. All right, let's go to a break now, and when we come back, Mrs. Kong will give us her message for today.
Firearms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Carr Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Carr Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Friday, June 30th, 2017. We're in the last day of June now on the Gregorian calendar. This is the seventh day in the second fifth month of the Holy Calendar for this year, the 8th year of Cheongi. All right, we'll go now to Mrs. Kang, and she's reading this morning from Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 3, verses 10 through 12. As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none that understandeth, there is none that seeketh after God. They are all gone out of the way, they are together become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. 강 기자님, 말씀하십시오. 네.
안녕하십니까.
Good morning, everyone.
오늘 여러분들에게 말씀드릴 내용은 타락 전 처음 지었던 본연의 모습에 대해서 말씀을
Today
드리겠습니다.
I'd like to speak to you about the way that God created before the fall, what the appearance of the world was before the fall.
아담 해와가 얼마만큼 타락을 했느냐 하면은 그 이후의 세계는 사도 바울이 느꼈습니다마는 의인은 없나니 한 사람도 없다고 했습니다.
First of all, let's think of the extent of the fall of Adam and Eve. How far did they fall down? And as Paul said, in the world after the fall, no one was righteous, not one.
깨닫는 자도 없고 또 하나님을 찾는 자도 없으며 다 치우쳐서 불의의 길을 가게 되고 원치 않았던 악의 행동을 하면서도 그것을 나쁜 것이라고 느낄 수 없으리만큼 땅에 떨어져 내려왔습니다.
After the fall, no one could realize about God, no one could learn about God, and everyone was committing sin, everyone was committing unrighteousness, everyone was doing evil, even though they did not want to do evil, but they also did not realize that they were doing evil.
예레미야 선지는 말씀을 했어요. 무슨 말씀을 했느냐 하면은 오늘 우리 인간은 얼마만큼 타락되어 떨어져 내려왔느냐 하면은 만물보다도 더 거짓된 땅에 떨어진 입장에 있었다고 말씀했습니다.
Jeremiah in the Old Testament says that human beings fell to the point where we were even below the creation.
만물은 타락하지 않았지만은 오늘 만물에 영장된 인간이 타락되고 보니 오늘 만물도 타락권 내에 속하게 되었던 것입니다.
Creation, that is to say, all things meaning creation, all of creation except for human beings, did not fall. But because of the fall of human beings, even all things came to become a part of the fallen world.
그래서 의인은 없나니 한 사람도 없다고 했습니다.
And so Paul says that no one is righteous, no, not one.
잘못되었으면은 잘못된 것으로 우리가 간주하고 알아야 되겠는데 그걸 느낄 수 없고 또 깨닫지도 못한 그런 입장에 떨어져 내려왔습니다.
Human beings fell to the point where even though we were committing evil, we did not realize that what we were doing was wrong because we didn't know the law, we didn't know about God or His standard.
타락되고 보니 하나님이 계신다는 것도 그네들이 생각지도 못하고 알지도 못하고 느끼지 못했습니다.
After the fall, people, of course, didn't even know that there was a God. They could not even imagine that and could not experience that.
그래서 타락된 인류는 다 치우쳐서 함께 무익하게 되고 또 뿐만 아니라 더 나아가서 선을 행하는 자는 없나니 한 사람도 없다고 했으니 오늘 타락 이후의 세계는 정말로 엉망진창, 여기에는 선도 찾을 수 없고 의도 찾을 수 없고 정말로 전부가 무저갱에 떨어져 내려온 세계였습니다.
After the fall, there was no one that understood, no one that would seek after God. There was no one was of worth, and there was no goodness, there was no righteousness in the world.
그때에 사도 바울은 어느 정도로 이 얘기를 했느냐 하면은 타락된 이후에 인류의 목구멍은 열린 무덤과 같고 그 혀로는 정말로 말한다는 것이 속이는 말밖에는 하지 않았고 그 입술에는 독사의 독이 가득 차 있다고 했습니다.
And then if we go on to the next verse in verse 13, Paul says their throat is an open sepulchre. Their tongues they have used deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips. And so here Paul continues to describe the state of human beings following the fall.
독사의 독이 가득하다는 것은 무엇을 말하느냐 하면은 말하는 것마다 모두를 모함하고 모두를 저주하고 모두를 정말로 그네들이 하는 말은 들을 수 없을 만큼 아주 무서운 말을 해왔습니다.
When Paul says that the poison of asps is on their lips, he's saying that every word that the people spoke was poisonous. This was every word that they spoke was criticizing others, attacking others in this way. So it was poisonous.
그 입에는 저주와 악독이 가득 차 있었으며 정말로 그 발은 피 흘리는데 빠른 그런 속도로 걸어가는 입장이었습니다.
And then he goes on in 14 and 15 saying, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness, their feet are swift to shed blood.
그래서 타락 인류의 그 생활이라는 것은 어떤 생활을 해왔느냐 하면은 파멸과 고생이 그 길에 있어서 정말로 편안한 평강의 길을 알지 못하고 정말로 저주의 생활을 해왔던 것입니다.
And then in the next two verses, 16 and 17, Paul describes the type of lifestyle or life that this kind of situation brought about, saying that their destruction and misery are in their ways. It was a life of destruction and misery, and the way of peace have they not known. There was no peace in people's lives.
그들의 눈앞에는 정말로 무엇이 가득 차 있었느냐 하면은 피 흘리는데 빠른 반면에 평강의 길을 알지 못하고 정말로 어두운 죄악의 길에 허덕이고 있었던 것입니다.
People led lives of destruction and misery. All they could see was the blood that was brought about by their feet. That there was shift to shed blood, it says, and there was no peace in people's lives.
거기에 또 무서운 것은 하나님을 두려워하지 않는 정말로 대음망덕의 길을 걸어갔던 것입니다.
And then in 18, he says that there was no fear of God before their eyes. What a terrible thing that would be.
이 정도로 떨어져 내려온 인류였기 때문에 하나님이 보실 때는 얼마나 탄식하고 만물이 탄식할 정도로 인류는 타락의 길을 걷게 되었던 것입니다.
So Paul is describing for us here the extent to which human beings fell as a result of the sexual fall in the Garden of Eden. And you can imagine then how much God lamented and how much all of creation lamented to see the way that the human beings had become.
이것을 보신 하나님은 정말로 안타까워하셨고 더 나아가 아버님께서 이 타락된 세상을 바라볼 때에 어떻게 하면은 이 인류를 여기에서 구원해서 바른 옳은 도의 자리에 세울 수 있을 것인가 아버님은 생각하셨던 것입니다.
So when God looked at this, and when Father came as Messiah and looked at this, and he saw the terrible situation of human beings, and had to think of how can these human beings be restored back to the lofty position to which God created us.
그래서 기도하시고 정말로 연구하시고 하나님에게 물어보시고 답을 받으면서 아버님은 지나왔습니다.
And so Father prayed and he asked God and he studied the situation and sought God's guidance each step of the way to find a way that the human beings could be restored.
나는 아버님의 성경을 보고 깜짝 놀랐던 것입니다. 왜냐하면은 그 성경 66권 전부 빨간 줄을 쳐놨어요. 빨간 줄을 아주 많이 쳐놓은 것을 보고는 얼마나 연구를 많이 하셨으면 저렇게 붉은 줄을 쳐가시면서 이 말씀 연구를 하셨을까 생각했습니다.
Mrs. Kang once had the opportunity to look at the Father's personal Bible, and she was surprised to see that almost all the verses in the Bible, almost all the verses in the 66 books of the Bible had been underlined by Father with a red pen. That she saw then how much Father studied the Bible over and over again.
그래서 자신의 모든 것을 헌신짝과 같이 다 버리고 아버님은 이 원리 말씀을 공부하시고 연구하시는데 전력을 기울여 쏟았던 것입니다.
And Father threw away everything of his own person, and of his personal things, and devoted himself completely to fulfilling the words of the principle.
오늘 신학을 많이 했다는 유명한 신학 박사들이 연구해내지 못하고 알지 못했던 그 내용 말하자면은 타락이 어떻게 되었느냐 정말로 과일 따먹고 타락된 것이 아니었고 성 문제로 타락되었다는 새로운 이 말씀을 아버님은 아시고 발표하셨던 것입니다.
And Father studied and found the secrets that many theological scholars had not been able to resolve in the Bible. And he discovered that the fall of humanity did not come about as a result of eating a fruit, a literal fruit, but that it had occurred as a result of a sexual problem.
이 말씀을 발표하셨을 때에 아버님은 참이었기 때문에 통쾌하게 생각하시는 반면에 더 나아가서 오늘 세상 신학 박사, 철학 박사 할 것 없이 이네들은 이거는 아닌데 했던 것입니다.
And when Father announced this, on one hand, Father was very excited that he was able to give this news to humanity, and that the fall was a sexual fall. On the other hand, he was criticized by many theologians and philosophers who said, "No, that can't be right."
그래서 아버님은 이 말씀은 정말로 하나님으로부터 답을 받은 참의 말씀이라는 것을 마음 가운데 아버님은 새기면서 정말로 통쾌하게 아버님은 생각하셨답니다.
But Father insisted that this is the answer that I got from God. This is the answer that God gave me, and he continued to preach this.
그러면 그렇지 정말로 손으로 따서 과일은 입으로 먹었을 텐데 어째서 이걸 그대로 액면 그대로 문자 그대로 믿을 수 있느냐? 손으로 따서 입으로 먹은 것이 아니었고 이렇게 타락되고 보니 찾아 손손 후손에게 이 타락이 유전이 되어서 모두가 범죄하게 되고 모두가 정말로 불의의 길을 가게 되었다는 것을 느꼈을 때 아버님은 무릎을 치시면서 정말로 성문제로 타락이 되었지 물질 따먹은 것으로 된 것은 아니라는 것을 거기에서 더욱 확신을 얻었다는 말씀도 들었습니다.
Of course, it makes sense. And Father once told me that when he discovered this, it flashed like a light bulb coming on. Of course, it had to be that way. And of course, the fall could not have been the situation where human beings use their hands to reach up and pick a fruit off of a tree and eat that with their mouth. That could not be possible. If this sin was passed down from generation to generation, and if human beings fell to the extent that Paul describes here, it had to be a sexual sin. Father described to Mrs. Kong one time how excited he was when he discovered this.
아버님은 자신을 가지신 거예요. 왜 자신을 가졌느냐 하면은 이것이 정말 틀린 것이 아니었고 참이었다는 것을 아버님은 하늘로부터 명령을 받고 하늘로부터 해석을 듣고 여기에서 아버님은 참 내가 정말로 사실의 말씀을 참의 말씀을 전하게 되니 오늘 인류는 얼마나 행복될까 생각하셨답니다.
Father said that when he discovered this, realized this, he was very excited because this was the truth. This was the truth that would lead to human salvation for all people. This was the truth that would eventually bring about a world where all people could live in happiness.
오늘 이 세상에 많은 사람들이 나와서 역설하고 설교하고 말씀했지만은 성 문제로 타락했다는 것을 얘기한 사람은 한 사람도 없습니다.
In today's world, there are many good speakers who come out and they give all sorts of sermons and speeches, but no one is teaching this fact that the fall came about as a result of a sexual sin.
그래서 아버님은 말씀하실 때 정말로 자신이 있었고 또 더 나아가서 말씀하실 때는 사력을 다해서 아버님은 말씀하셨던 것입니다.
And so our father was, well, because father knew that this was true, that this was the answer that God had given him, he could speak with confidence, and he was able to pour his entire energy into his words when he spoke.
이럴까 저럴까 하는 것이 아니었고 정말로 답이 하나인데 하나의 이 정답을 아버님이 찾아내시고는 너무너무 통쾌하시고 이렇게 해서 역사는 망쳐지게 되고 역사는 정말로 어두운 길을 가게 되었으니 내가 이것을 밝히는 데 앞장서야 되겠다는 그런 신념을 가지시고 확신을 가지시고 아버님은 출발하셨던 것입니다.
There was no doubt in father's mind. It was not a situation where, well, maybe it's this or maybe it's that, I'm not really sure. No, it was very clear that this was the answer, that this was a sexual sin, that this was the reason that human history had been going through darkness and confusion and suffering for all these years. And it was this that would then, this fact then would then clear away, would open up the way. It was the key to open the way for Father to bring salvation. And so Father devoted himself to bringing this news to the world.
아버님은 역사의 비밀을 밝혀내신 분이에요. 그런데 이것도 정말로 당신이 찾아내신 것도 있지만은 하나님으로부터 직접 받으셔서 옳은 정답이라는 말씀을 듣고 아버님이 출발하시면서 자신을 가지시고 내가 이걸 정말로 온 인류에게 선포해서 이들로 하여금 죄악의 소굴에서 건지시는 구원의 역사를 하셔야 되겠다는 이런 뜻에서 아버님은 출발하셨답니다.
Humanity was in darkness. Humanity was in the was trapped in a cave of sin, in a dark cave of sin. But it was this truth that Father brought that could bring light to that darkness and bring light to that cave and show the way out of that cave. And Father made his determination then to lead humanity out of darkness and into light.
역사의 비밀을 아버님은 밝혀내시고 또 더 나아가서 아버님은 이 타락론뿐만 아니라 전 원리의 이 내용을 모든 사람이 들을 때는 정말로 깜짝깜짝 놀래리만큼 새로운 말씀을 많이 하셨던 것입니다.
Father revealed the secrets of history, and it was not just a matter of the chapter on the fall of man. Father revealed the entire divine principle that and when people heard this content, they were amazed by it.
이것을 정말로 참이다. 하나님으로부터 내려온 정답이었고 하나님이 가르쳐 주신 말씀이라는 것을 느낄 때는 우리들도 여기에 아버님과 같이 흥분하면서 고마워하고 감사한 마음을 가지고 받아야 되는데 우리는 그냥 지나가는 얘기로 들을 때가 많이 있어서 참 회개하지 않으면 안 될 우리들이라는 것을 저는 느낄 때가 많이 있습니다.
When Father discovered the principle and when he revealed it, he had a heart of excitement. This is a fantastic news. This is the news that's going to bring salvation. But when we hear these words or when we read the principle, we just sort of read over it casually. But we need to have that same sense of excitement, I think, that the Father had and gratitude that Father had when he first revealed the principle.
그래서 아버님은 정말로 이북에서 이남에 내려오실 때도 어떤 각오를 하셨느냐 하면은 내가 정말로 이 새로운 사실을 새로운 말씀을 발표하고 인류를 정말로 이 죄악의 구렁텅이에서 건지는 이 책임을 내가 지고 바로 말씀을 전해야 되겠다는 간절한 심정을 가지시고 얼마나 많이 연구를 했으면은 그 성경책 하나를 보게 되면은 빨간 줄을 쳐놓고 거기에다가 뭘 많이 쓰시고 한 것을 보고는 이분은 참 많은 연구를 하시고 정말로 자신 있는 말씀을 하신다는 것을 저는 그때에 느끼고 터득했던 것입니다.
When Father came south from North Korea, he held in his heart the sense of responsibility that he had to preach this word. When I saw how much he had underlined in his Bible, and also he had also written many notes in the margins of the Bible, and I could see how much he had really studied the Bible and tried to figure out how to convey this truth to all humanity.
아버님은 그때 말씀하셨어요. 이 말씀을 일주일만 들으면은 전편을 듣고 후편을 듣고 일주일만 들으면은 모두가 다 이 말씀 앞에 꼬꾸러지는 것이다. 이런 자신을 가지시고 이런 소망을 가지시고 아버님은 이 복귀 섭리 역사를 시작했던 것입니다.
I remember Father telling me that he was confident that if a person would listen to the principle for just 1 week, part 1 and part 2, for just 1 week, then that every person would understand the truth, that this is the truth. And he began his mission for the restoration, providence of restoration, with that degree of confidence.
이 원리 말씀은 정말로 지금까지 제례에 말씀해왔던 내용이 아니었고 새로운 말씀이었고 또 더 나아가서는 이것은 확실한 말씀이었고 이것은 정말로 하나님께서 직접적으로 가르쳐 주시고 또 역사해 주시면서 내어줬던 말씀이 바로 오늘 이 말씀인 것입니다.
These words that Father revealed were not just a run-of-the-mill speech that another minister could have written. These were words of truth that he received from God.
이 말씀을 아버님이 시작하시면서 많이 웃었답니다. 기도를 많이 하시고 정성을 많이 들이면서 하나님 나에게 이러한 역사의 비밀 6천년 역사의 비밀을 보여주시고 알려주시고 가르쳐주셔서 감사합니다. 내가 이 말씀을 하나님 대신 전하겠으니 더욱더욱 나를 보시고 협조해 주시라는 기도도 많이 하셨다고 저는 들었습니다.
Father prayed tears many times. He prayed saying to God, thank you, God, for revealing to me all the secrets of history through the principle. Now I will act as your representative in the world to spread this truth to all of humanity.
그래서 아버님은 옥중에 들어가서 공판을 받으실 때에 뭐라고 얘기했는고 하면은 판사가 이 허구의 얘기를 이걸 뭐냐면은 받아들일 수 없다는 그 판사가 그 말씀을 해줄 때에 아버님은 뭐라고 했는고 하면 거기에 허구라는 말 두 글자는 빼달라고. 왜 그러냐 하면 이거는 허무한 허구의 얘기가 아니었고 진실된 말씀 정말로 하나님으로부터 받은 옳은 말씀이었기 때문에 허구라는 얘기를 그냥 넘길 수 없어서 판사에게 그걸 제안을 했더니 그렇게 하라고 했다는 것입니다.
So when Father stood in the North Korean court and it was being sentenced to prison, there was one word in the verdict that Father asked the judge to delete, and that was the word falsehood. The verdict said that Father had spread falsehood, but he wanted that word to be deleted, and because he said this was not falsehood, it was true, and the judge agreed to do that.
그래서 우리 통일교회 식구는 정말로 참 뜻을 알고 참 하나님의 심정을 알고 정말로 참의 말씀을 우리가 알고 지금 이 길을 걸어간다는 이 자신을 가질 때에 오늘 우리들은 정말로 남이 할 수 없었던 일, 남이 느낄 수 없었던 것을 느끼면서 갈 수 있는 자신 있는 자리에 설 수 있을 것입니다.
So we who are in the Unification Church, when we understand that we have been given this truth, that when we have the secrets that have been revealed to us, to our true Father, when we have that confidence, and when we live with that confidence, we can accomplish things that no other person has been able to accomplish.
아버님은 말씀하실 때 신념과 확신을 가지고 말씀하셨지. 그냥 아버님은 기성교회 목사들 같이 어떤 형식이나 의식이나 제도에 매여서 하신 것이 아니었습니다. 참 이 말씀은 하나님으로부터 직접 주신 말씀이라는 이런 자신을 가지시고 사력을 다해서 말씀을 하셨던 것입니다.
When Father spoke, he would do so with confidence and conviction. He did not speak like other ministers or ministers in other denominations, because he knew that the words that he was speaking were the words of God, the words of the truth that had been revealed to him by God.
그렇기 때문에 아버님에 대해서 증거한 사람들이 많이 있었던 것입니다. 한국 사람뿐만 아니라 전 세계 인류 가운데 영이 밝은 사람, 참 무엇을 알겠다고 했던 사람들에게는 보여주시고 알려주시고 가르쳐 주었던 것입니다.
And so many people testified to Father, not just Koreans, but people in other countries in the world as well testified to Father, because it was revealed to them who Father was.
그래서 오늘 우리들도 가슴속 깊이 느끼는 것은 느껴야 할 것은 무엇인가 하면은 정말로 하나님께서 아버님을 세우셔서 이 참의 말씀, 비밀의 말씀을 전달하실 때에 얼마나 하늘에서 정말로 귀하게 생각하셨을 뿐만 아니었고 들으시는 아버님도 참 감사하고 고마운 마음으로 이 소자에게 이렇게 하늘의 비밀의 말씀을 주셔서 참 감사합니다. 내가 여기에 어김없이 틀림없이 하나님이 바라시고 원하시는 그대로의 뜻을 이루어 드리겠습니다 하고 맹세하고 나오신 길이 바로 오늘 이 길이었던 것입니다.
We need to realize this morning how much God thought of Father as being precious, His precious Son, that He would reveal to our Father these secrets that no one else had been able to find, and also how grateful Father was, and how excited Father was to receive these precious words from heaven, and how excited He was then to begin His journey on this path of restoration.
그래서 아버님이 새로 시작할 때에 어디에서 시작할 곳이 없었어요. 그래서 범일동 그 국유지 한쪽에다가 정말로 움막집을 지으시고 출발하실 때에 아버님의 그 심정은 기가 막혔고 아버님의 그 입장은 참으로 초로하고 초조한 가운데서 시작을 했던 것입니다.
When Father came to South Korea to begin again, there was no place for him to start. And so he found a piece of land that was owned by the state and built a small hut. And it was from there that he began this great providence.
나 한 사람을 앞에 두고 말씀하실 때에 수천 군중을 놓고 말씀하신 것 같이 다다미 2장도 안 되는 조그마한 방 안에서 아버님은 사력을 다해서 말씀해 주셨던 것입니다.
And when Mrs. Kang visited him for the first time, Father spoke to her in that small room. It was only about maybe 6 feet by 6 feet or so. She was the only other person in the room, but he spoke to her as if he were standing before thousands.
나는 깜짝깜짝 놀랐어요. 왜 놀랐느냐 하면은 아직 내가 젊어서 귀도 안 먹었는데 왜 저 청년이 저렇게도 큰 소리로 야단스럽게 말씀을 하실까? 나는 집에 조용히 돌아갈 수 없이 고막이 터지든지 무슨 변을 당할 것이라고 생각하리만큼 아버님은 큰 소리로 큰 성대를 높여서 말씀을 해주셨던 것입니다.
In that small room, Father was shouting. And Mrs. Kang was saying, "Why is this young man shouting at me? It's not as if I'm an old woman. I'm a young person, and I'm not hard of hearing. Am I going to be? Am I going to be attacked? Is something going to happen to me? Am I going to be able to get home this evening?" That's how she felt as Father was speaking to her that day.
아버님은 어떤 뜻에서 그렇게 말씀하셨느냐 하면은 세상에 살아있는 사람들뿐만 아니라 영계에 가 있는 모든 영인들까지에도 정말로 이 말씀을 전해야 되겠다는 뜻에서 그렇게 큰 성대를 높이시면서 아버님은 정말로 그 표정을 볼 때에는 미친 사람이 뛰듯이 아버님은 말씀을 했었던 것입니다.
But Father was not just speaking to Mrs. Kang. He wanted the entire world to hear these words, and not just the people in the physical world, but the people in the spirit world as well. And that's why he shouted that way, as if he were a crazy man.
10원 다다미 2장도 깔 수 없는 조그만한 방 안에 정말로 누가 보면은 저게 사람이 저런 집에서 살 수 있을까 생각하리만큼 초라한 집이었습니다마는 아버님은 거기서도 자신을 잃지 않고 정말로 이 말씀을 통해서 인류를 내가 지으셨던 하나님이 처음 지으셨던 본연의 입장으로 돌아갈 수 있는 복귀시키는 일을 내가 해야 되겠다는 그런 뜻에서 아버님은 심각한 입장에서 말씀을 해주셨던 것입니다.
That hut was small and so miserable that you could not imagine anyone was actually living there. But even in that environment, Father was serious and he was completely committed to bringing salvation to the entire world.
그때의 아버님은 정말로 외적인 입장을 본다고 하면은 옷은 헌누더기 옷을 걸쳤어요. 위에는 고동색 잠바를 입으시고 밑에는 한복바지, 그러니까 동서양을 짬뽕해서 옷을 입으시고 또 다다미 2장도 안 되는 조그마한 방 안인데 방 바닥에는 아주 시커먼 갓밭 조각을 깔아 놓으시고 벽에는 신문지 한 장도 안 붙어 있는 그런 방에서 아버님은 말씀을 하셨습니다.
Father, I visited that hut, and it was such a miserable hut that on the floor was actually a piece of a raincoat that had been laid down on the floor, and the walls. There was no wallpaper, not even a newspaper was pasted to the walls.
그때의 아버님은 말씀을 하시는 그 모습을 볼 때에 정말로 나 하나를 앞에 두고 조그마한 방이니까 조그맣게 얘기해도 얼마든지 이해할 수 있을 것인데 왜 그렇게 자신만하게 큰 음성을 가지고 하셨느냐 하면은 영계에 있는 영인들까지 다 들으라고 아버님은 말씀을 하셨습니다. 지상은 물론 영계 지금까지 죽었던 모든 수천 그 영인들에게까지 내가 이 말씀을 전해놓고 가지 않으면 아니 되겠다는 그런 심정에서 말씀을 하셨습니다.
My father's clothing that day was a mixture of a Western and a Korean style clothing. He was wearing a Western style jacket, but Korean style trousers. So it's just a mixture of any clothes that he had picked up somewhere along the way. He spoke with tremendous confidence and he shouted as if he were speaking to the entire world. Because Father was absolutely committed to that during his lifetime he wanted every person in the world to hear these words, and not just every person in the spirit and the physical world, but the people, all the people who had lived on earth and then gone to spirit world as well. He wanted to speak to everyone while he was on earth.
말씀하시면서도 늘 아버님은 내 수고보다가는 하나님의 수고가 훨씬 더 커졌다는 것을 아버님은 누누이 설명하시며 어떤 때는 우시고 어떤 때는 웃으시고 어떤 때는 담담한 표정으로 말씀을 하셨던 것입니다.
And when Father would speak, I remember he would sometimes weep, sometimes he would laugh, sometimes he would speak in a calm and serious voice, and he would talk about how no matter how much difficulty he himself may have experienced, God's difficulty, the experience that God had experienced was far greater than his.
그래서 우리들은 이 말씀에 대한 가치를 아버님만큼은 못 느끼지만은 정말로 우리들도 참이라는 말씀을 우리들도 가슴에 새기면서 오늘 우리들은 어느 누구보다가 세상의 누구보다가도 참 말씀을 우리는 가지고 있고 참 말씀을 들었던 우리였고 참 말씀을 실천하고 전하지 않으면 안 된다는 이 심정이 우리들의 가슴 속에서 불부터 올라야만 아버님이 우리들을 보실 때에 정말로 만족하신 그 심정으로 우리들을 대하실 것입니다.
Father was this way because he understood the value of these words, the value of God's words, the value of the truth. We can never appreciate the value of these words as much as Father did. But still, we need to at least understand to the extent that we need to, we have confidence that we have the truth, and we need to then act on Father's behalf to spread this truth to all the people of the world, so that God's providence of salvation can be completed.
너무 우리들은 경하게, 가볍게 생각하고 원리에 대한 가치도 우리가 정말로 가치 기준을 똑바로 느끼지 못하고 우리들은 따라왔던 것입니다.
We need to repent that we have treated the principle, the words of the principle, too lightly, much too lightly. That we have not even begun to appreciate their value. We have not treated these words with the value that they deserve.
우리도 아버님만큼 정말로 느끼면서 가슴 속에서 살아서 약동하는 그 심정이 불부터 오고 끓어오를 수 있는 그 심정으로 우리들은 이 말씀을 대하고 이 말씀을 전하는 자리에 처하지 않으면 먼 후일 우리는 먼 후일이 될는지 가까운 시간이 될는지 모르지만은 아버님 앞에 우리는 정말로 욕먹을 수밖에 없습니다.
We need to appreciate these words and feel that same sense of urgency that Father did to let the entire world know these words of the principle. if we don't do that, then someday in the far future, or maybe not so far in the future, when we have to go to the spirit world and when we have to stand before True Father, we will have to be held accountable for what we have not done.
늘 아버님은 말씀하셨어요. 이거는 참 말씀이야. 이거는 하느님으로부터 직접 내려주신 말씀이야 하는 그 말씀을 저는 많이 들었기 때문에 오늘 여러분들도 정말로 그 말씀이 그냥 나온 말씀이 아니었고 아버님의 피와 땀과 눈물 속에서 이루어진 나온 말씀이라는 것을 느끼면서 우리들이 이 말씀을 대신한 말씀 실체 대신자로서 나타나기에 부족함이 없는 이런 자리에 처해서 말씀을 우리가 전할 때에 하늘이 같이 해주시고 영계가 같이 해주시고 정말로 영계에 계시는 아버님이 우리들과 더불어 함께 해주신다는 것을 깊이 느끼는 이 아침이 되어 주시기를 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
Mrs. Khan remembers the father often spoke how he would say, these are the words of truth that I received from God. These words are true. And the father had the full conviction and full confidence in the truth of these words. So let's also inherit that confidence and that conviction that the father had. And let's go out and spread these words with the same sense of urgency, because these are the words that will bring salvation. These are the words that will bring God's world to this earth. Thank you very much.
고맙습니다.
Thank you.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
God's not dead.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring, he's roaring like a lion, roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not
Welcome back to the King's Report for Friday, June 30th, 2017, the 8th year of Cheongi, the second fifth month, and the seventh day by the heavenly calendar. As we start going through the news today, I wanted to start with Illinois. Today is the last day of their fiscal year, and they need to pass a budget. The legislature needs to pass a budget and have it signed by the governor before the end of today, if they are to have a budget before the end of the fiscal year. And if they don't, then this will be the third year that they failed to pass a budget. And what this means is that the credit rating agencies, such as Moody's and S&P, are threatening, or not, I guess it's a threat, or saying that they will have to downgrade the bonds issued by Illinois to a junk status, in other words, below investment grade status, if they are not able to pass this. And that will mean that the cost of borrowing of Illinois will go up. And Illinois basically will go into a kind of a financial, what some people are calling a death spiral, where things get just worse and worse, and there's no way out of it. So wanted to. This is a lesson because Illinois is not alone. It's not just a matter of Illinois, but also New Jersey is often mentioned as another state that is in a similar situation. Connecticut, Massachusetts are mentioned. Florida, California are mentioned. California right now is although they have suspended it for now, there's still a lot of pressure in California to go to a single-payer health care system, even though there's no money to pay for it. And if they do go to that system, certainly California will also go down the way of a bankruptcy, which is where Illinois is going now. Except that the bankruptcy laws do not allow states to declare bankruptcy. If that is to happen, then Congress, the federal Congress, will have to change the law so that it can happen. So, how did we get here? How did Illinois get here? How did, in fact, the country as a whole get here? And what's going to happen and what needs to be done about it is what I wanted to think about this morning. And of course, considering that how this will be handled in Cheongguk, the federal government is not allowed to borrow money to fund the general operation of the government in peacetime. And that is really the way to do it, to just say that, listen, we're only going to spend as much as we have. That's all we're going to spend. I mean, that's what we do in our families, right? I know there are credit cards, but eventually you come to the point where your credit cards are maxed out and you're not able to spend anymore. So then you stop spending. And so this is what needs to happen, but this is not what has been happening. So here on CNN Money, there's an article, How Illinois Became America's Most Messed Up State. Unfortunately, it is maybe the most messed up state, but it is not the only messed up state. There are other states as well. Politicians are notorious for making promises they can't keep, but they really outdid themselves in Illinois, and now the state is paying for it. Illinois is on the verge of becoming America's first state with a junk credit rating. The financial mess is the inevitable result of spending more on pensions and services than the state could afford, then covering it up with reckless budget tricks. Margaret Thatcher in the UK is famous for having said that the problem with socialism is that at some point you run out of other people's money. And that's what's happening. The politicians want to keep giving people things, want to keep people giving pensions and better pensions and giving their voters more things so that they can get the votes. But you come to a point where you just don't have any more of other people's money. Because government itself doesn't have money. Government doesn't produce money. Government doesn't produce income. It doesn't produce value. All it does is take money in the form of taxes from one group of people and give that money to another group of people. That's all it does. After decades of historic mismanagement, Illinois is now grappling with $15 billion of unpaid bills. $15 billion in unpaid bills, and an unthinkable $250 billion owed to public employees when they retire. Now, that $250 billion is not owed immediately, but as people begin to retire, the state is going to have to start paying it, and they don't have it. The budget crisis has forced Illinois to jack up property taxes so high that people are leaving in droves, of course. Some people have moved to here, to Pennsylvania, to the Newfoundland or northeast Pennsylvania area, to the Cheonryugung area, from Illinois, from the Chicago area. Illinois may soon have to take the unprecedented step of cutting off sales of lottery tickets because the state won't be able to pay winners. It will get worse if lawmakers can't reach a budget compromise by Friday, in other words, by today. This would be the third year in a row that America's fifth largest state has failed to pass a constitutionally required budget. And this situation is actually spreading throughout the country, throughout the United States. And this is one reason that some people are predicting a overall financial collapse in America, because as these because what happens if the bonds, in other words, bonds are issued by a state when they want to borrow money, and people buy those bonds, but if the state cannot repay it, then people lose their money, and if they lose their money, then then those people have to sell other assets in order to make up for that, and this is going to create a huge financial mess. Illinois got to this financially treacherous place by ignoring the long-term consequences of short-term decision-making. That ever happened before? Said Lawrence Saul, the president of Civic Federation, a budget watchdog organization. The budget crisis has crippled social services that survive on state money, hurting everything from mental health services and Meals on Wheels for homebound seniors to domestic violence support centers. See, these are all areas that could have been done in the private sector. Private charities could have done all of this, but the government is doing it. And now the government is in trouble. It would have been better if this had been left up to private sectors. And so in the Cheonryugung Constitution, all these areas are not allowed for the government to get involved. Mental health services and Meals on Wheels for homebound seniors, these kinds of Social Security and welfare type situations, the government should not get involved. It cannot get involved under the Cheonryugung Constitution. These are areas for private charities, churches and community organizations, religious organizations to get involved in this with private donations. And domestic violence support centers. Again, if this had been done in the private sector, we would not be facing this difficulty now. The most valuable citizens in Illinois, the most vulnerable citizens in Illinois are being hurt the most severely, Saul said. Yes, that's terrible. That's happening, but it's the result of many years of mismanagement. While the budget impasse is throwing a spotlight on Illinois' dire financial situation today, the financial problems go back at least to the 1980s and involve politicians from both parties. Yes, the most glaring evidence is the enormous pension crisis. Rather than dealing with the problem, Illinois continued to reward the state's powerful unions with more generous benefits. Yeah, you know, all the politician just wants to get reelected 2 years from now or 4 years from now, whatever their term is, and they don't care what happens after that. They just want to get reelected. And this is the problem with what we have today, where politicians are only interested in getting reelected. The problem festered for so long that Moody's estimates that Illinois has unfunded pension liabilities totaling $251 billion. The massive pension liability results from chronic tendency to defer difficult decisions. Yeah. Politicians don't want to make difficult decisions, because that means sacrifice. Difficult decisions means unpopular decisions. That's what difficult decisions means, unpopular decisions. And politicians don't want to do those. They want the next guy to make them. And that is why this current system that we have is collapsing. And that is why we need a constitution such as the Cheonryugung Constitution that forces these decisions to be made and puts them in the private sector so that there's competition. And some charities will do well, some will fail, but always then there will be just like that, because that's the way the free market works. And others will come up and others will succeed. The massive pension liability results from a chronic tendency to defer difficult decisions, said Ted Hampton, who, as a senior credit officer at Moody's, will help decide whether to downgrade Illinois into junk. Hampton said Illinois treated the pension fund as a financial cushion that could be relied on to provide physical relief. He also pointed to a tendency to delay paying bills and chronically underestimate spending needs. All these problems are governance and management weaknesses, Hampton said. That's a polite way of saying the political leaders broke the system. Now, these political leaders, they're not handling their own finances this way. They're not, their own family finances are not being handled this way. And if they have companies, they're not handling their company finances this way. But this isn't their money. This is taxpayers' money. It's not their money. And so they don't care about handling it in an irresponsible manner. And now, that's what they've done. And who's paying the price? As it said in the article, the most vulnerable people in society are going to be paying the price. I want to go now to this another story that shows another aspect of who is going to be paying the price for this irresponsibility, where colleges and universities in Illinois will not be getting money, and that is going to threaten the accreditation of these institutions, and so many students may have to find colleges in other states as a result of this. If my computer will cooperate with me here, good. From out of Springfield, Illinois, Illinois college students have been feeling the effects of the state's budget crisis since day one. Funding for MAP grants has been funded late or not at all, and programs and staff have been cut because schools aren't getting the money they need. Colleges face losing their accreditation. This is a high-stakes game that we're entering into right now, said Southern Illinois University president at a press conference in Springfield Wednesday afternoon. As the clock ticks down on an Illinois budget, college students' futures hang in the balance. We're going to be under heightened scrutiny to see if the public university system here in Illinois can continue to meet the standards for accreditation, Dunn said. The message comes from the Higher Learning Commission, who provides federal accreditations to colleges and universities. With a federal accreditation comes the ability to offer federal financial aid. Dunn said a loss of accreditation is a slippery slope for the entire state, not just college students. Not having access to that money means students do not come to school, Dunn said. The benefits that accrue from post-secondary education in terms of economic development and creating better citizens to help the state's economy is lost. College enrollment throughout Illinois has declined since the budget crisis began in July 2015. We haven't seen MAP funding to help access for our most needy students. This has suppressed enrollment all across the state of Illinois. For all of our institutions, we've seen a rush to the exit for students to look for enrollment in other states. Dunn said funding through the state budget is the only way to assure the future of students and the entire state. If you lose accreditation, and there are appeals processes and reviews, of course, but at the end of the process, you are really out of business unless you want to be some sort of unlicensed trade school with a diploma that's of no more value than a piece of paper. Wednesday marked the 8th day of the Illinois General Assembly's special session. Lawmakers have until July 1 to come up with a budget before the fiscal year 2018 begins. So here, it's college students that are suffering as a result of this, as a result of the irresponsibility of the politicians. The politicians themselves are not suffering. They're not suffering. They're just delaying the difficult decisions. And this is not just happening in Illinois. It's happening in New Jersey. It's happening in Connecticut. It's happening in Massachusetts. It's happening in Florida. It's happening in California. And in other states as well. But the ones I've just listed are just the worst cases that we see right now. Just keep on giving the voters what they want. Keep on giving them free stuff, free stuff, free stuff. Remember Kukchinim's lectures on strong Korea and a strong America that he gave in 2010 and 2011? This is exactly what he was talking about. He talked about this in terms of the Roman Empire. This was how he went through and showed how this led to the destruction of the Roman Republic, and how the Roman Republic had turned into a dictatorship as a result of this. Because dictators become dictators by giving people free stuff. Argentina, Perón. And that's how they did it. Over and over again. It has happened again and again and again. And this is how democracies end. And that is why in the Cheongguk Constitution, this is not allowed. It is these programs, these social programs, belong in the private sector, and government is not allowed to get involved in social welfare or in education, so that this kind of a situation does not arise. All right, let's take a break now, and we'll come back with more news from a Cheongguk perspective right after this.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Friday, June 30th, 2017. We're going through the news this morning from a Cheongguk perspective, and we see at the top of a Drudge report this morning, crackdown on illegals. House passes Kate's Law. House passes Kate's Law as part of the illegal immigration crackdown. And this is, let's get this video out of the way. House Republicans took action Thursday to crack down on illegal immigration and the cities that shelter them. One bill passed by the House would deny federal grants to sanctuary cities, and another, Kate's Law, would increase the penalties for deported aliens who try to return to the United States. Kate's Law, which would increase the penalties for deported aliens who try to return to the United States and caught, passed with a vote of 257 to 157, with one Republican voting no and 24 Democrats voting yes. Kate's Law is named for Kate Stenley, a San Francisco woman killed by an illegal immigrant who was in the United States despite multiple deportations. The 2-year anniversary of her death is on Saturday. President Trump called the bill's passage good news in a tweet, adding, "House just passed Kate's Law. Hopefully, Senate will follow." He should not have been there, and she should not have died, House Speaker Paul Ryan said Thursday in a final push for Kate's Law, an earlier version of which was blocked in the Senate last year. Our job here is to make sure that those professionals have the tools that they need and the resources that they need to carry out their work and protect our communities. That is what these measures are all about, added Ryan. The other bill, which would deny federal grants to sanctuary cities, passed with a vote of 228 to 195, with 3 Democrats voting yes and 7 Republicans voting no. The brutal murder of Stenley catapulted the issue of illegal criminal aliens into the national spotlight. Alleged shooter Juan Francisco Lopez Sanchez had been deported 5 times and had 77 felony convictions. On Wednesday, President Trump highlighted other causes during a White House meeting with more than a dozen families of people who had been victimized by illegal immigrants, including Jamil Shaw Sr. Jamil Shaw's 17-year-old son, Jamil, was shot and killed by an illegal immigrant in California in March 2008. He was living the dream, Shaw said during the meeting. That was squashed out. The second measure, No Sanctuaries for Criminals Act, would cut federal grants to states and sanctuary cities that refuse to cooperate with law enforcement carrying out immigration enforcement activities. The word sanctuary calls to mind someplace safe, but too often for families and victims affected by illegal immigration crime, sanctuary cities are anything but safe, Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly asserted in the pre-vote press conference. It is beyond my comprehension why federal, state, and local officials would actively discourage or outright prevent law enforcement agencies from upholding the laws of the United States, he added. While gaining support in the Senate for similar legislation will be a tough road, Trump called for Congress to act quickly. Trump called on the House and the Senate to honor grieving American families by approving a package of truly key immigration enforcement bills so that he could sign them into law. I promise you, it will be done quickly. You don't have to wait the mandatory period. It will be very quick, promised Trump. Earlier on Wednesday, Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director Thomas D. Homan and U.S. Attorney for Utah John W. Huber made their cases for the bills during the White House press briefing. Huber said 40% of Utah's current felony caseload involves criminal alien prosecutions, and the number is increasing. Wow. Get that? 40% of Utah's current felony caseload involves criminal alien prosecutions. 40%. The bills, Huber asserted, would advance the ball for law enforcement in keeping our communities safe and would give officers and prosecutors more tools to protect the public. Many immigrant rights groups have characterized efforts to crack down on sanctuary cities as anti-immigrant, but Attorney General Jeff Sessions says it is not sound policy to allow sanctuary cities to flout federal immigration laws. According to Homan, ICE already has arrested nearly 66,000 individuals this year. 66,000 individuals this year, and the year is only half over, that were either known or suspected to be in the country illegally. Of those arrested, 48,000 were convicted criminal aliens. The practice of these jurisdictions are not only contrary to sound policy, they're contrary to the law enforcement cooperation that is carried out every day in our country and is essential to public safety, Sessions wrote in a Fox News op-ed backing the bills. Now, this is really amazing because think about it. In a country, sovereignty means that you have borders. Sovereignty means that you have borders, and you protect those borders. That's what sovereignty is. So these people who are opposing this kind of legislation, who are supporting sanctuary cities, these are people who are opposing America's sovereignty. It's plain and simple. They're opposing America's sovereignty. And yeah, and in their mind, sovereignty is a bad thing. It's a right-wing nationalism. We don't want right-wing nationalism. We want to get rid of borders and let everybody come in. But we see what has happened in Europe, and we don't want what has happened in Europe to be happening here. Europe now is really in a death spiral, where we'll see in a minute, where Frankfurt now is now the first European city where foreign-born people outnumber native people. Frankfurt, Germany, that's their situation now. And a certain number of those, and if the foreign-born people were assimilating into German culture, that would be fine. But they're not. And some people are actually outright meaning to destroy German culture and the German history, German economy, and German state. Sweden, France, these cities, these countries are now going beyond the point of no return, where they would become Islamic nations over the next decades. But we don't want to happen that to happen here in the United States. This is a country that has been established as, yes, it's a melting pot. But if you're not going to melt, you can't come in. If you're going to try and come in here and commit crimes, if that is your purpose for coming, then you cannot come in. That's a common sense approach. But there are people who say, oh no, this is anti-immigrant, anti-immigrant, anti-immigrant. Well, I'm sorry. Maybe it's time for people to take responsibility for their own countries. Instead of seeking a better life in America, stay in your country and seek a better life for everyone in your country. And you can do that by convincing people to adopt the Cheonryuk Constitution so that your country can become more prosperous, and it can become a model for other people to envy, instead of just escaping and coming to America. Does that sound harsh? I don't think so. I mean, not everyone in the world can come to America. You want 7 billion people all to crowd into America? I don't think that's the solution for the world. People have to build societies, build communities and societies where they are, so that they can, so that the whole world can be God's kingdom. You cannot just come into America and take it over and commit crimes here in this way. And I think these are common sense laws, and I think it is a tragedy that people are opposing it, and apparently it's going to be difficult to get that through the Senate, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be at all. Here in we see also in Breitbart, a judge revokes a sex offender's citizenship. And also a new travel ban came into effect last night, so that people from 6 Muslim majority countries have to show that they have established relationships with people in the United States, either as parents or children, or apparently fiancés are now okay too, but not grandparents. So it says that the grandparents don't count in narrow definition of close family members. Lawyers set up shop at JFK, LAX, ATL, these airports. Hawaii challenges. Of course, we can always depend on Hawaii to do something like that, can't we? What are they saying in Hawaii now? They're challenging the family rules on the travel ban. Well, guess who set those family rules? It wasn't the Trump administration. It was the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Hawaii challenged a court challenge today to the Trump administration's limitations on the family relationships that people from 6 mostly Muslim countries need to claim to avoid a travel ban. The U.S. Supreme Court on Monday exempted people from the ban if they can prove they have a bona fide relationship with a U.S. citizen or entity. The Trump administration had said the exemption would apply to citizens of Syria, Sudan, Somalia, Libya, Iran, Yemen, with a parent, spouse, child, adult, son, or daughter, daughter-in-law, or sibling already in the U.S. The administration late today apparently also added fiancé to the list of bona fide relationships. Hawaii filed an emergency motion today asking a federal judge to clarify that the administration cannot enforce the ban against fiancés or relatives not defined by the administration guidelines. In Hawaii, close family includes many of the people that the federal government decided on its own to exclude from the definition. Unfortunately, this severely limited definition may be in violation of the Supreme Court ruling, Attorney General Doug Chin said in a news release today, finding any way they can to try and undermine the president's efforts to secure American sovereignty. Hawaii's motion notes that the plaintiffs challenging the travel ban had asked the Trump administration after the Supreme Court ruling to indicate how it intended to implement the bans. The motion says the administration did not respond until the information was publicly posted hours before the partial bans went into effect at 2 p.m. Hawaii time today. U.S. District Judge Derek Watson has not immediately issued a ruling on Hawaii's motion. So the fight goes on. Fight for American sovereignty goes on. The president is trying to secure that sovereignty, trying to secure safety for American citizens living here, but people keep trying to undermine that effort. No. We want to bring in all the criminals of the world. We want this should be a haven for criminals. Trying to tear down America. That's what these people are doing. All right, let's take a break and come back with more news from a Cheonryuk perspective after this.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Friday, June 30th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheonryuk, Hyungjin Moon, who is on the third day of his trek in the Rocky Mountains today. I want to go then related to immigration to the fact that the European Union is rattled by President Trump's visit to right-wing anti-migrant Poland. Within the European Union, there are some countries that are trying to oppose the European Union's forced assignment of quotas for accepting migrants. Poland is one of them, Hungary is another, and the Czech Republic, and I think also Slovakia, maybe another. And Trump now is going to visit Poland, and the European Union in Brussels is not happy about this. European Union officials are worried U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to Poland will bolster the populist right-wing government there, encouraging their defiance of the EU and damage European unity. The president's one-day stop-off en route to the G20 summit in Hamburg is for a gathering dubbed the Three Seas Project, bringing together leaders from Central Europe, the Baltic states, and the Balkans. The event has been convened by Poland as it bids to garner influence outside the EU, which has clashed with its nationalist government over migrant policy and sovereignty. One cannot but feel a bit suspicious if it isn't an attempt to break up European unity, a EU diplomat said about the Three Seas Project, speaking to Reuters. Another senior EU official said it was part of Poland's push towards self-ghettoization. Poland's ruling Law and Justice Party and Mr. Trump have similar views on migration and climate change and share a suspicion of international bodies and globalization. The president also backed Brexit and predicted a further breakup of the EU. His dealings with the rebellious right-wing governments of Central Europe will be watched closely by Brussels. Poland has taken a leading role in opening the rift between the ex-communist Eastern and Central EU nations, with largely right-wing governments and liberal Western European nations. Most recently, Poland led a resistance to the EU's forced migrant resettlement quotas, opposed by Romania, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. As the EU pushes to sanction nations that refuse to take thousands of Middle Eastern asylum seekers, Polish Prime Minister Beata, can't pronounce that, recently called the migrant quota policy a madness of Brussels elites in a speech in Parliament. We encourage Mr. Trump to get out and travel as much as he can. He needs to understand Europe, and he can do that by getting out and speaking to people, to European leaders, said one European official who declined to be named. But he can't do deals with individual countries over the head of the European Union, he added. Wow, did you just read that? President Trump cannot do deals with individual countries over the heads of the European Union. So, wow, that is a statement of a dictator. That is a statement of a dictator. Say, hey, I'm in charge here. I'm sitting in Brussels, and I'm in charge here. President Trump is going to go to Poland, and he thinks that he can make a deal between the United States and Poland without my permission? Without going through me and Brussels here? How dare he? That is the statement of a dictator, and that is what Europe has become. This shows it. That's what Europe has become. This man's statement, he is confessing. He's showing that he is a dictator. And this is an unnamed European bureaucrat in Brussels that is saying this. The president will be looking to push exports of U.S. gas on the trip to Poland as attempts to reduce its reliance on Russia. Poland will seek reassurance of the president's commitment to NATO as it faces a perceived threat from Russia. I wanted to also go to an article on the Czech Republic, because the Czech Republic yesterday, or Wednesday, I guess, passed a constitutional right to bear arms. That is a republic, I think it was the lower house that passed this. Now, the president of the Czech Republic said a few days ago or a week ago or so that he wanted to give all Czech citizens the rights to bear arms, and the king spoke about that, and he spoke about it very highly. And then now the Czech Republic Parliament is going to, the lower house has passed it, still has to be passed by this is a constitutional amendment that they've passed. But there's a catch. There's a catch. And you'll see what it is in a minute. There's a catch. Czech lawmakers have passed legislation in the lower parliament that would see the right to bear arms enshrined in the country's constitution in a move directed against tighter regulations from the European Union. The legislation was passed with 139 deputies agreeing to the amendment to the Constitution, with only 9 deputies voting against, 139 to 9. The amendment will now be considered by the Czech Senate, where it will require a supermajority of 3/5 of the members in order to pass into law, DePressa reports. Similar to the U.S. Second Amendment to the Constitution, which gives Americans the right to keep and bear arms, the Czech legislation reads, citizens of the Czech Republic have the right to acquire, retain, and bear arms and ammunition. The amendment also notes that the right is there to ensure the safety of the country, similar to the provisions of a well-regulated militia in the American Amendment. While the new law will enshrine the right for Czech citizens to purchase and own firearms, members of the public will still need to acquire a weapons certificate. Interior Minister Milan Chovanec said the new legislation was directly aimed at an EU directive from March, which sought to prohibit semi-automatic firearms and magazines that hold more than 10 rounds for pistols and 20 rounds for long guns. We do not want to disarm our own people at a time when the security situation is constantly worsening, Chovanec said. The Czech Republic has one of the largest rates of firearm ownerships in the EU, with an estimated 300,000 gun owners who own around 800,000 individual firearms. Laws around gun ownership in the Central European country are also far less restrictive than other EU countries, with 240,000 of the 300,000 gun owners having concealed carry permits and self-defense being a recognized reason for firearms ownership. The Czech defiance of EU policy has in recent months been largely confined to the issue of the redistribution of migrants. Czech leaders, along with those from other Visegrad Group states of Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia, have all rejected EU plans to redistribute migrants from Italy and Greece, raising concerns over security. Andres Babis, expected to become the next Czech Prime Minister, completely rejected mass migration this week, commenting, "We have to fight for what our ancestors built here. If there will be more Muslims than Belgians in Brussels, that's their problem. I don't want that here. They won't be telling us who should live here," it says. But then I need to find this because here in the Reuters article, it gives that caveat. Well, let's see, the Czech lower chamber approved a bill. It says the European Commission, the EU's executive arm, agreed to stricter gun rules in December. And Czech will have this tradition, and so forth and so on. Now, it says, the Czechs with a tradition of gun ownership, especially for hunting, have objected to some of the rule tightening, although sponsor of the Czech bill said the changes to the Constitution would not stop the EU directive coming into effect. So it doesn't matter. Czech Republic can change their constitution to allow guns, but they still have to obey Brussels. Boom. Because they are slaves to Brussels. They are slaves to the European Union. And President Trump is going to Poland to encourage the Polish people and the Polish government to resist the EU. Britain has already voted to leave the EU for some of the same reasons, because they did not want to lose control over their borders. They did not want the EU to tell them how many migrants to accept and be forced to accept those. And if they don't accept them, the EU is going to apply sanctions to countries like Poland and Hungary and other countries that are trying to resist them. How dare they resist the European Commission, which has become it is a dictatorship, just like the king says. It is the Soviet Union recreated in Europe. It is the Soviet Union recreated in Europe. It's a dictatorship. And some of the countries now in Eastern Europe are resisting that. People in Czech Republic are saying, hey, our ancestors created what we have, and we have to protect it. And we're not going to allow the EU to force us to receive migrants. Well, the EU is going to force them. And if the Czech Republic or if Poland refuse that, at the end of the day, the EU is going to apply sanctions. It's going to, in other words, financial sanctions. They will suffer financially. Right now, these poorer countries are receiving a lot of aid from the EU, and that is how the EU controls them. And that's why, even as individuals, we have to be careful who we take money from, because money comes with strings very often, and when we become dependent on this kind of a largesse, then we allow ourselves to be enslaved, and that is what is happening with these countries now in Eastern Europe. They joined the EU because they thought it would be financially beneficial to them, but they've had to give up their sovereignty. They've sold their sovereignty. Even if they are poor, I think that they will be better off if they maintain their sovereignty. And that is how Cheongguk will be built. That is how Cheongguk will be built. Sovereignty will lie with families. And it will be protected primarily by the militia, by citizens taking responsibility to own weapons and to train with those weapons, so that if a time comes, that they will be able to protect the territory of the country, of their state, so that they can establish and maintain sovereignty and accumulate assets within that territory, within that sovereignty. And that will build God's kingdom. That will build God's kingdom on this earth. Organizations such as the EU clearly has to be broken up in order for God's kingdom to come. And we see more and more resistance against them occurring within the EU. And President Trump is doing his part to support that resistance. And he's to be commended for doing so. All right, let's take another break, and we'll be coming back with more news from a Cheongguk perspective after this.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for June 30th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon, who is on his third day, the third and last day of his trek through the Colorado Rockies. And as we looked at the weather there earlier, we saw that they may have had some rain during the night. I'm not sure. As I look at the radar, it looks like the rain kind of maybe circled around to the north of him. But I can't be sure. You know, it's a mountainous region, and the weather, of course, is very changeable in the high mountains, and so there can be localized rain. But it looks like today he will have partly sunny skies as he continues on that very difficult marathon trek through the Rocky Mountains at something like 12,000 feet elevation. And we pray for his safety and the safety of his family and the safety of everyone with him, that they can return in victory to the Cheongguk. Drudge has a link to a Gallup poll that shows that everybody wants their taxes to be lowered. Not sure why people pay money to find that out. I mean, isn't that something that we already know? But anyway, let's look at what they've written here. Donald Trump is a man who throws down gauntlets, and he threw down several big ones during his campaign for president, converting the status quo on immigration, on health care, and on taxes, to name a few. He is now pursuing bold policy changes on each, but it could be Trump's action on taxes that matters most to whether the stock market continues to ride high. GDP growth returns to a healthy 3%, and therefore whether his presidency is judged well in posterity. Now, you notice that until a couple of days ago, we were talking about healthcare. Everything was healthcare. All of a sudden today, no one knows, hey, what healthcare? What's that? We're talking about immigration all of a sudden. We're talking about taxes all of a sudden. Now, why is that? Well, because everybody agrees that the Senate healthcare bill is not going anywhere. And so everybody has sort of agreed, let's stop talking about it. It's embarrassing. And it is. The Senate leaders, Republican leaders, Mitch McConnell and his leaders don't have the votes to pass that bill. And so they say, okay, we'll delay the vote until after July 4th. And the Congress is going on vacation after today, actually beginning today, I guess. And we're going to pretend that healthcare never happened. We've already talked about that. We need to just wait and wait for the Senate to finally come around to the Congress to finally come around to the understanding that only the free market can give us good health care for an affordable price. But anyway, so now we're talking about immigration and taxes. So let's go here with taxes. But without health care reform, really tax reform is not going to happen. So, but we're going to ignore that anyway. News about the taxes has been relatively slow thus far in the Trump administration. Judicial blowback against his immigration policies and the congressional blowback on health care reform have received far more attention than the general tax plan principles he announced in April. Still, achieving detailed tax reform may prove even more difficult than his other policy struggles once the wheels start turning. Before making tax reform a year-end goal, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin initially said he hoped to complete tax reform by August. Yeah, right. Senate Leader Mitch McConnell reacted by saying that tax reform is a very complicated subject. Translation, ain't going to happen. And harder to do now than the last time Congress achieved it in 1986. And passing the 1986 tax reform legislation was no easy task. It required winning the support of a Democratic House and a Republican president, and took nearly 2 years of intense negotiations. Alluding more cynically to the significant political obstacles that often impede changing the tax code, former House Speaker John Boehner said the passing of a tax code overhaul is just a bunch of happy talk. Now, however, current Speaker Paul Ryan is also pushing for tax reform by the end of 2017, making these obstacles appear a little less daunting than if the administration were going it alone. Aside from whether tax experts and Washington politicians are willing to upend the tax code, it is important to note where the American people stand on the need for action on taxes. It must be remembered that taxpayers must dislike the current tax system, but not be convinced that Congress and Trump administration will make it better. Change could be worse. Without a strong push from the American people, Trump's tax reform might not materialize. Well, the same is true with the immigration and with the health care. I think the only reason that they're making some progress on immigration is because there has been a strong push from the American people, because eventually the American people are the owners of this country, whether they realize it or not, and whether the elites allow that or not. He advocated eliminating votes. During his 2016 campaign, Gallup tested several of the candidate Trump's tax proposals. He advocated eliminating most federal income tax deductions and loopholes for the very rich. And Gallup found 63% of American adults favored this, with just 70% opposed. His proposal to simplify the federal tax code, reducing the current 7 tax brackets to 4, was also popular, with 47% agreeing and only 12% disagreeing. Trump's plan to eliminate the estate tax paid when someone dies garnered considerably more agreement than disagreement from Americans, 54-19. And notably, this is an issue that Congress and the wider public have considered in the recent past, and public sentiment on the issue today is in line with the past Gallup polls on this issue, such as when it asked about keeping the estate tax from increasing in 2010. Well, what about asking people how they would like it if they just got rid of the income tax altogether? What percentage of people do you suppose would like that? Personal income tax and corporate income tax. Where's the government going to get the money to run the government, you say? They're not. Total government revenue will be limited to 10% of the GDP. And the government will not be allowed to get involved in healthcare, and not involved in education, not involved in Social Security or other welfare. All of these will have to be taken care of in the private sector. And people, since they're no income tax, but the revenue, the main source of revenue will be a sales tax. A sales tax. This is what is outlined in the Chernobyl Constitution. No filing of taxes, or very little filing, because there's also an excise tax, I guess, and then a use tax. But very simple filing, if any at all. Let's see Gallup test that with the people. Test that with the people, and see what percentage of people would agree to something like that. And that's the best system to go with, because that then allows people to donate to the charities that they want to donate to, because they are taking responsibility for the less fortunate in society. Jesus said to love our neighbors, that we are our brother's keeper, and we are. But that means that we should help them directly. Doesn't mean that we should give all our money to the government so that we can pass off the responsibility to the government. This means that we should help our brothers. We should help the poor people in society, the weak people, the vulnerable people. We should, directly, by donating to charities, or by giving them money directly, and people around us, the families that we know that are in need. We can give them money directly, and we can help them get back on their feet. And our churches and our community organizations can establish funds to help people in our communities, or outside our communities if we want. And that's how we are really acting as owners of Chernobyl. We're not just giving taxes to the government so that the government can do it. And that's also how we avoid building this huge bureaucracy that is whose continued existence depends on keeping a certain class of people dependent on the government. If no one was receiving welfare, where would the bureaucrats draw salary from? They are paid. They're being paid because these people are on welfare. And if everyone got off welfare, the bureaucracy would disappear, and these people they would have to go on welfare. And they don't want that. So we see that they have a vested interest in keeping people on welfare. And we see all sorts of fraud going on. And we read about that from time to time, where the small amounts of it, of the fraud, is discovered and may be prosecuted. We need to get rid of all that. We need to get rid of all that. Let private institutions handle this kind of a charity. Don't have the government involved in that. And that's the only way that we can really reform society and create a society where people are taking responsibility for each other. That's how it works in the Cheongguk Constitution, where total government revenue is limited to 10% of the gross domestic product, and where private institutions, private charities handle many of the functions that governments are handling now. That is what we need to be working for, and I can see that is what God is guiding us toward. All these this financial collapse that is happening in Illinois and soon to be happening in other states, and soon to be happening in the United States as a whole. This is all leading to a situation where if everything collapses and we have to rebuild from scratch, then that is how we can rebuild. And already the Constitution for that rebuilding is already out there, and people just have to read it and understand it and follow it. All right, let's take another break. What is it, 5 minutes this time? Yes, and then we'll come back after we fed the fishes. Are we going to feed the fishes? Yes, we're going to feed the fish and come back with more news from a Cheongguk perspective. No, we're not going to feed the fish.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
God's not dead.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival.
God's not dead, he's surely alive.
He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. He's roaring. He's roaring like a lion. Roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
And love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. And love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. He's roaring. Let heaven roar.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Friday, June 30th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon, and we are praying for his victory on this third and final day of his trek through the Colorado Rockies. And the president is tweeting this morning, and I just wanted to go over the two tweets that he has put up so far. In his first one, he says, if Republican senators are unable to pass what they are working on now, they should immediately repeal and then replace at a later date. Of course, he's referring to the health care bill. I said we had suddenly stopped talking about health care, and all of a sudden the president talks about health care. This would cause, this is something that also Rand Paul is now suggesting, but this would cause, some people, a lot of people to lose their health coverage if it is repealed and then there's a certain time period before it gets replaced. And always it's the vulnerable people in society who suffer as a result of the irresponsibility of politicians, and I'm afraid that would happen again. But it may be the best course of action, maybe the least bad option that's available, given the fact that the Republicans are not able to agree on something, and also that the Democrats continue to block any effort to repeal Obamacare. And the next tweet that he gives is, crime and killings in Chicago have reached such epidemic proportions that I am sending in federal help. 1,714 shootings in Chicago this year. So it's interesting that the president is not referring to the budget situation or the financial situation in Illinois, but only to the crime situation in Chicago, and saying that he's going to send in federal help. Well, congratulations, Mayor Rahm Emanuel. You are now going to get federal help from Donald Trump. 1,714 shootings in Chicago this year. Doesn't say what kind of federal help is going to be sent in. Let's watch that over the next few days to see what that specifically refers to. Now, on Drudge, also still talking about the taxes, the Congressional Budget Office says that the debt is set to climb $1 trillion. And if we look at that, this is on a CNS news.com. CBO, that's the Congressional Budget Office, says that income taxes up 9.5% next year, but debts climb more than $1 trillion. Unless current laws are changed, federal individual income tax collections will increase by 9.5% in fiscal 2018, which begins on October 1, according to data released today by the Congressional Budget Office. At the same time, the federal debt will increase by more than $1 trillion. In fiscal 2017, which ends on September 30, the federal government will collect $3.315 billion in total taxes, according to projections by the CBO. That $3 trillion in total taxes will include about $1.5 trillion in individual income taxes, and then $1.1 trillion in payroll taxes, $310 billion in corporate income taxes, and $267 billion in other taxes. In fiscal 2018, according to the CBO's projections, total taxes will climb to $3.5 trillion. That will include $1.7 trillion in individual income taxes and $1.2 trillion in payroll taxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So America's debt keeps climbing. Massive increase in the federal government's debt next year. According to CBO projections, the gross federal debt will rise from $20 trillion at the end of fiscal 2017 to $21 trillion at the end of fiscal 2018. That's an increase of $1 trillion. So that is why the U.S. debt, national debt, continues to increase, and it is people have been saying for years that this is unsustainable. It's unsustainable, and yet the politicians continue to say, yeah, well, let the next guy worry about it. I'm not going to worry about it. Let the next guy worry about it. Let the next guy worry about it. Let the next guy worry. And eventually it's going to all come crashing down. And we don't know when that will happen exactly, but more and more economists are warning of a crash sooner than later. Update, Congress skips town, 218 days off in 17. Of course, Congress doesn't just work when they're in Washington. They also work when they're at their in their constituencies. And I don't think that we should necessarily count every day that they're not in Washington as a day off. Cops clock motorcyclist traveling 146 miles an hour, tracked with airplane. Cyber attack forces West Virginia hospital to scrap computers. Archdiocese blasts girl who sued to play on boys' basketball team. Tom Ford laments women in yoga pants. Justice Department drops fight over Redskins' name. Hospitals ramp up hyperbaric therapy. Cops accuse man of having sex with a dead woman in public. Judge, we already did the immigration stuff. 129 degrees in Iran, one of Earth's hottest temperatures ever recorded. Prime Minister ISIS near defeat in Iraq. A federal judge blocked California ban on high-capacity magazines. So this is they always say that when a dog bites a man, that's not news. But when a man bites a dog, that is news. And this is here, man bites dog. Unless, of course, you're in China. But anyway, that's another story. Federal judge blocks California ban on high-capacity magazines. A federal judge has temporarily blocked a voter-approved California law that would have forced gun owners to get rid of high-capacity ammunition magazines by this Saturday. U.S. District Judge Roger Benitez, who is based in San Diego, issued a preliminary injunction Thursday that found the law was likely unconstitutional because it prevented people from using firearms that employed whatever common magazine size he or she judges best suits the situation. The law would have barred people from possessing magazines containing more than 10 bullets, or 10 rounds, I mean. The state of California's desire to criminalize a simple possession of a firearm magazine able to hold more than 10 rounds is precisely the type of policy choice that the Constitution takes off the table, the injunction read. Benitez added that a final decision will take too long to offer relief, and because the statute will soon visit irrevocable harm on plaintiffs and all those similarly situated, a statewide preliminary injunction is necessary and justified to maintain the status quo. The judge granted the request of attorneys from the National Rifle Association affiliated California Rifle and Pistol Association to temporarily block the law. In the days leading up to the ban, some California gun owners, pro-gun sheriffs, and sellers have been reluctant to give up their magazines. Some gun owners have previously said that they were hoping pending court challenges would block the ban. We're not going to be knocking on somebody's door looking for them, said Shasta County Sheriff Tom Bosenko in an earlier interview with the Bee. We're essentially making law-abiding citizens into criminals with this new law. The ban is part of Proposition 63, approved with 63% of the votes in November, that required background checks for people buying ammunition and instituted other firearms restrictions. In a statement, California Attorney General Xavier Becerra said the proposition aims to prevent further mass shootings by those who own high-capacity magazines. I still don't realize in California that the criminals are going to have what they want, regardless of the law. I mean, they're criminals. They're not going to say, oh, wow, look, this law has been passed, so I better give up my high-capacity magazines. The criminals are not going to say that. Only the good people are going to be giving up their magazines. And the criminals are going to be keeping them. So when you get into a situation, criminals have 20 rounds in their gun. The good guy has 10 rounds in his gun. They start shooting back and forth. The good guy runs out of ammunition. His gun is empty. The bad guy still has 10 rounds. But that is a piece of logic that does not apply in California, apparently. Proposition 63 was overwhelmingly approved by voters to increase public safety and enhance security in a sensible and constitutional way, Becerra said in a statement. Restricting large-capacity magazines and preventing them from ending up in the wrong hands is critical for the well-being of our communities. To get rid of magazines in compliance with the approved law, California gun owners would have been allowed to move them out of state, sell them to a licensed dealer, destroy them, or hand them over to law enforcement. But now a federal judge has blocked that. Here, But now they hear this gun owner is describing the confusion, the complexity in California's new gun laws. Shall we go ahead and play this video, see what happens?
I think people really understand what's going on. And just with DOJ not really publishing anything and letting us as dealers know what's going on, it makes it difficult for us to inform our customers and let them know what's going on, and the general public for that matter. They're worried about running background checks on the ammunition. They're worried about having to purchase some sort of safety card. All of this stuff is just adding up and driving up the cost of ammunition. If you're a competitive shooter or somebody who likes to go out and take a lot of training classes, anything like that's just tacking on additional fees, right? So you're spending more money to do something that you love. So right now we don't typically get people shipping in ammunition because under current law, unless you're within certain cities that don't allow that, you can just have it shipped right to your doorstep. For us to process anything like that, it's going to take manpower to do that. We have to pay our guys, obviously, to be able to do that, so we'd have to charge a fee for it. You'd expect to see it rise, for sure, at least on a California level. Nationwide, probably not seeing anything go up like that, but in terms of California, I'd say you probably have to, depending on how DOJ handles it. If there's licensing fees or anything like that, obviously as a dealer we have to cover that, so we would need to raise prices on ammunition.
Okay, that a video from the Sacramento Bee, a newspaper there in California, and talking about the effect of the new law coming that is being comes into effect on tomorrow, on July 1, as a result of Proposition 63. And so we'll see whether California has fewer mass shootings or more mass shootings as a result of this. That will be interesting to watch. I predict that they will have more because the criminals will have more ammunition than the good guys, and there will be. If you want to kill lots of people, I guess bad guys will go to California, away from Pennsylvania, where they will not have that. They will not have that advantage over good people. Germany to legalize same-sex marriage. We were hearing about this from our brother in Germany yesterday, where the Conservative Party has opposed legalizing same-sex marriage for 20 years. And even today, the Conservative Party being Merkel's party, and it's the party that is in power right now in Germany. So a majority of the Conservative Party don't want to legalize same-sex marriage, and they're the party in power. So how is it that Germany is legalizing same-sex marriage? Well, it turns out that Chancellor Merkel wants to get reelected. And in order to get reelected, she needs support from the Socialist Party and from the Green Party and these other parties that support same-sex marriage and say that they will not support a candidate who opposes same-sex marriage. And she wants to get reelected, and to get reelected, she needs these parties' support. So she said on Tuesday, yeah, let's have members of the legislature vote their conscience. We'll have the members of the legislatures vote their conscience we're not going to tell our, because usually in a parliamentary system, the party tells the members of their party how to vote in the legislature. But he said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to let everybody vote their conscience on this bill to whether or not to allow same-sex marriage. So now, with the Socialists and Greens, and then with some members, a minority of the Conservative Party, that law is probably not going to pass. But it was done very, very quickly. Tuesday announced, Friday vote, so that the people who are opposing it don't even have a chance to oppose it. So now it looks like Germany is going to legalize a same-sex marriage, even though the majority of the parliamentarians in the ruling party oppose it. A very strange situation that Chancellor Merkel has engineered in order to help her own re-election in the upcoming election in September. That's a politician for you. That's a politician. Not the interest of the state, not the interest of the whole, but my interest. I want power. I want to maintain my position as a chancellor, so as a political leader. So therefore, I'm going to do what it takes to accomplish that. To heck with the interests of the country. So that is what's going on there in Germany, and we'll come back with more news from a Chunuk perspective after this.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Friday, June 30th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Chunuk, Hyungjin Moon. And we want to go to China now, because things are changing now. President Trump has been trusting, or I guess relying on China to solve the North Korea situation. And China hasn't been doing that, so now President Trump is kind of gradually increasing the pressure on China. Earlier this week, we saw that the State Department released a report on human trafficking, where China was downgraded from Tier 2 to Tier 3, meaning that they no longer qualify for some investment or some aid from the United States. And now President Trump, the State Department under President Trump has decided to sell some arms to Taiwan, some weapons to Taiwan. The State Department approved on Thursday selling more than $1 billion in arms to Taiwan, and yet another sign that the Trump administration is embracing a far more confrontational approach with China. I wouldn't say far more, but gradually, though, I think the president is putting the vice on China and turning up the heat, putting up on the vice, whatever you want to say. Heather Nauert, a State Department spokesman, underscored that the military sales have no effect on the United States' one China policy, which President Trump suggested in December may be under review. Mr. Trump later affirmed to Chinese President Xi Jinping that he would honor the decades-old policy which the United States recognized a single Chinese government in Beijing and severed its diplomatic ties with Taiwan. Well, kind of. You know, that Taiwan actually, okay, it does not have an embassy in the United States, but it does have a trade and cultural office. And if an American wants to go to Taiwan, he can go to this trade and cultural office and receive a document that looks and acts and smells very much like a visa. So, you know, and Taiwan has these trade and cultural offices in many countries that technically do not have diplomatic relations with Taiwan and only recognize the Beijing government. So it's kind of a diplomatic fiction. But anyway, the arms sale is the most tangible sign yet that Mr. Trump's honeymoon with Mr. Xi is over. Again, the New York Times is exaggerating the situation. It's just, honeymoon is cooling off a bit, all right? the American president had set aside tough moves on trade and regional issues in an informal quid pro quo with Mr. Xi's commitment to further pressure North Korea. But Mr. Trump acknowledged last week that China had fallen short in its measures toward North Korea, and officials have said he would be less constrained in other parts of the relationship, including Taiwan. To that end, the administration also announced sanctions Thursday on a Chinese bank that has business dealings with North Korea. The announcements came hours before Mr. Trump was set to host a dinner for South Korea's new president, Moon Jae-in, a progressive who is more open than his predecessor to diplomatic engagement with the North. Yeah, Moon Jae-in came to the U.S. and he had dinner with President Trump yesterday, and I think they also had a meeting afterwards, but nothing really has been reported about that. I checked the South Korean papers as well, and they're only reporting the menu that was served, and really not much of substance. The president did tweet on that, saying last night, just finished a very good meeting with the president of South Korea. Many subjects discussed, including North Korea and a new trade deal. Many South Korean newspapers are now speculating on when he says new trade deal, does that mean he's going to scrap the current free trade agreement or what that's going to be? We don't really know what exactly that means. That, combined with a potentially more turbulent relationship with China, could complicate Mr. Trump's efforts to curb North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. That's not what's going to complicate it. I mean, it's complicated already. Additionally, the Trump administration is expected to, in the coming days, to determine that the American steel industry needs to be protected from cheap imports as a matter of national security. That is expected to lead Mr. Trump this summer to impose tariffs on steel imports, yet another action that is sure to infuriate the Chinese. The New York Times writer really likes to use these inflammatory words like infuriate, the honeymoon is over, and things like that, really trying to create confrontation between the United States and China. But let's be careful about that, and we can sort of we can be wise and sift through those kinds of biases. At a news conference at the Chinese embassy in Washington during a Thursday evening party celebrating the 20th anniversary of Hong Kong's handover to China, Chu Tiankai, China's ambassador to the United States, condemned the arms sale and bank sanction. All these actions, sanctions against Chinese companies, especially arms sales to Taiwan, will certainly undermine the mutual confidence of the two sides and runs counter to the spirit of Mar-a-Lago summit, Mr. Chu said. He was referring to an April meeting between the two presidents where they each talked tough on trade but described a warming kinship at Mr. Trump's estate in Palm Beach, Florida. Well, you know, this is what ambassadors are paid to say. Of course, China, and what the ambassador is saying is that China has gotten the message, and they don't like the message, but we'll have to see what China does about it. I think because China is also turning, up the screws, turning the screws on North Korea as well, reducing the imports of oil, we discovered. But the problem, of course, is that North Korea is simply turning to Russia on many of those for some of that oil. And also we find that we read yesterday or the day before that people who are selling oil to North Korea actually are doing it using bank accounts that belong to North Korea but have been opened in the name of Chinese and this kind of thing. So these kinds of sanctions against North Korea are not really working very well, and China needs to take a more decisive action. And I've advocated that China should take military action against North Korea. Far better that China do it than the United States do it. The flurry of actions targeting China comes a week before. Mr. Trump is expected to meet with Mr. Xi at a group of 20 meeting in Germany. Eric Albach, a senior vice president at the Albright Stonebridge Group, said it might signal that the Trump administration is trying to show China that it cannot be managed by Beijing on key issues. So taking this series of actions is potentially an attempt to send a wake-up call in advance of their discussions at the G20, Mr. Altbach said. The sales, valued at $1.42 billion, include torpedoes, missiles, and early warning radar support, largely to modernize the island's existing defense capabilities. A Trump administration official who spoke on condition of anonymity to describe the arms package said it was aimed at bolstering Taiwan's confidence in its dialogue to improve relations with China. The arms sale announcement started a 30-day review period during which Congress could vote to halt the sales, but it is unlikely to do so. So the United States maintains a certain relationship with Taiwan, even though it does not have a formal diplomatic relations. It does, from time to time, it does sell arms to Taiwan. It has done so in the past, and I'm sure it will do so in the future. And every time it does, then China complains and says, hey, you can't do that. We're supposed to have a one-China policy. And the United States says, hey, yeah, we have a one-China policy. We have a one-China policy, but we're going to sell arms to Taiwan, even though we don't recognize them. So this is the kind of diplomatic kind of fiction or dances that go on all the time. But really, I think the New York Times is correct that the Trump administration is sending a message to China that China really needs to do something about North Korea. And if sanctions if the sanctions don't work, then China needs to maybe act militarily against North Korea. Eventually, someone is going to have to go in there and remove those nukes. And if it's not China, will it be Russia? Probably not. If it's not China, then the United States will have to do it. And that would be a tremendous tragedy for many people who would probably die in a retaliatory strike by North Korea against Seoul and South Korea, and perhaps against Japan and perhaps against Guam. So the Trump administration is slowly putting more pressure on China, and we hope that China will come around and do this. Of course, China has its own domestic situation too. Xi Jinping is involved in a power struggle with a former president, Jiang Zemin, and that also factors into this. And perhaps Xi Jinping can use this kind of a pressure to convince people who are opposed to him within the Chinese regime to support an action against North Korea. North Korea has to be handled. And the only way to handle it really is to change that regime. As long as that regime is in power, they're going to keep on developing nukes, and they're going to acquire the ability to attack not only the United States, but also China, Russia, Japan, and Southeast Asia. And the world, I'm sure, will not allow that to happen. All right, let's take a break and come back in a minute or so with more news from a China perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Friday, June 30th of 2017, the 8th year of Chungi, second fifth month, seventh day by the heavenly calendar. I want to stay on the China theme for just one more story. China has built new military facilities on islands in the South China Sea. A U.S. think tank reported on Thursday, a move that could raise tensions with Washington, which has accused Beijing of militarizing the vital waterway. So it's not just North Korea that the Trump administration is worried about with China. It's a continuing militarization of the South China Sea. China claims 90% of that ocean, even though other countries around there also have territorial claims. Vietnam has territorial claims, Philippines, Indonesia, Brunei, Malaysia also has territorial claims there, Thailand also. But China is ignoring all that, saying, hey, shh, this is all ours, mine. And they are then building artificial islands using existing reefs and then militarizing those islands, putting military facilities on those islands. Now this think tank says that they're doing even more than they've already done. The Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, part of Washington's Center for Strategic and International Studies, said new satellite images show missile shelters and radar and communications facilities being built on the Fiery Cross, Mischief, and Subai reefs in the Spratly Islands. The United States has criticized China's buildup of military facilities on the artificial islands and is concerned that they could be used to restrict free movement through the South China Sea, an important trade route. Last month, U.S. Navy warships sailed within 12 nautical miles of Mischief Reef in a so-called freedom of navigation operation, the first such challenge to Beijing's claim to most of the waterway since U.S. President Donald Trump took office. You see, what happens is that from time to time, the United States will say, hey, these are international waters, and so our Navy ships are going to go through them, and they sort of sail through them. And China says, hey, whoa, you're going through my backyard. You need to tell me. You need to tell me what you're doing before you do that. You need to get my permission. The United States says, no, we don't need your permission. The International Court in The Hague has already ruled that this is international waters. And so that is another source of tension between the United States and China. Here, this is a Mischief Reef. Here, radar comms facility under construction. New radome at the missile shelters, underground storage facility. We see that. These are satellite pictures. China has denied U.S. charges that it is militarizing the sea, which is also claimed by Brunei, Malaysia, Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam. So China says, hey, this is all for peaceful purposes. We're not militarizing. This is all for peaceful purposes. Trump has sought China's help in reining in North Korea's nuclear missile program, and tension between Washington and Beijing over military installations in the South China Sea could complicate those efforts. Yes, it's complicated. China has built 4 new missile shelters on Fiery Cross Reef to go with the 8 already on the artificial island, AMTI said. Mischief and Subi each have 8 shelters, the think tank said in a previous report, which China says is all for peaceful purposes. In February, Reuters reported that China had nearly finished building structures to house long-range surface-to-air missiles on the 3 islands. The Mischief Reef, a very large antenna array, is being installed that presumably boosts Beijing's ability to monitor the surroundings, the think tank said, adding that the installation should be of concern to the Philippines due to its proximity to an area claimed by Manila. A large dome recently was installed on Fiery Cross, and another is under construction, indicating a sizable communications or radar system, AMTI said. 2 more domes are being built at Mischief Reef, it said. The smaller dome has been installed near the missile shelters on Mischief, indicating that it could be connected to radars for any missile systems that might be housed there, AMTI said. Beijing can now deploy military assets, including combat aircraft and mobile missile launchers, to the Spratly Islands at any time, it said. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? On the one hand, you want to rely on China to help you solve North Korea, because North Korea is going to soon acquire the ability to attack the United States. On the other hand, you've got China itself threatening the security of the world by militarizing the South China Sea, through which $5 trillion of trade passes through each year. all the oil that goes to Japan from the Middle East goes through the South China Sea. And then all sorts of exports from Japan to Europe also go through the South China Sea, and from other areas as well. That is an extremely important piece of water for world trade, and China insists on taking control of it. They insist on taking control of it. It's a can't say it's a land grab because it's not land. It's a territorial grab though, and it goes against all international laws. And already in the international court in The Hague has ruled against it. And yet, liberal elites are saying that they want to hold up China as the new leader, the new superpower in the world. And so they are actually willing to allow China to do all this in return for China helping them to create a communist-type system for the entire world. Now, the communist-type system, I mean a system where power is concentrated at the top, and where sovereignty of nations is eroded and eventually is completely gotten rid of. And that's the type of system that the international elite wants, and they're using China. They're using China to do that, and so they're willing to allow China to claim this kind of waterway that is extremely important. But Donald Trump is acting against that. Now, in the New York Times editors walked off the job. They walked off. And yet, the New York Times was delivered this morning, so what happened? Well, they walked off for 20 minutes. For 20 minutes. And so some people are jokingly called this was not a walkout, this was a coffee break, a long coffee break. But whatever it is, then they were shouting, "No editors, no peace." You'd think that journalists would be able to come up with something a little more original than that. Journalists at failing New York Times staged sad 20-minute, not a walkout, not a coffee break, cross-out coffee break, call it a walkout, in protest of cuts. And because now the New York Times is having to cut its, especially its copy editors, refused to talk to Breitbart. You see they're holding a sign that says, "This sign was not edited," where they're purposely misspelling the word "was." Okay. Reporters and editors at the New York Times Thursday attempted to stand up to their bosses by staging an approximately 20-minute walkout / coffee break. Okay, good luck with that. It's more humorous than it is anything else. Trump, CNN fake, whoops, camera went off. Okay, you can come back. I promise I won't say anything more about you. He's playing with them. He's just having fun with CNN. During a speech yesterday, he called CNN fake news. Thursday, during a speech highlighting the Department of Energy's Unleashing American Energy Initiative, President Donald Trump said CNN was fake news. Trump said Americans were told that our nation could only solve this energy crisis by imposing draconian restrictions on energy production. But we now know that was all a big, beautiful myth. It was fake. Don't we love that term, fake? Well, we've learned about the fake over the last little while. Fake news, CNN fake. Whoops, the camera just went off. Okay, you can come back. I promise I won't say anything more about you. I see the red light go off. I say, whoa. So he's having fun. If you're going to be president of the United States, you got to make it fun, right? All right, so he's having fun at the expense of CNN for a minute there. Pearl-clutching celebs freak out over Trump's Morning Joe tweets. Morning Joe, on MSNBC, has the anchors there have been making fun of Donald Trump for many, many months, a couple of years, even joking about his sexual organs. And now he struck back, and they don't like it. They don't like it at all. Hollywood stars threw temper tantrums on social media after President Donald Trump hit back at MSNBC's Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski Thursday, calling them Psycho Joe and Low IQ Crazy Mika on Twitter. "You're a national embarrassment. It's like you have no idea how to even fake being a normal human being. You are the proud type of insane, supermodel Chrissy Teigen tweeted. Because Donald Trump tweeted that Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row around New Year's Eve, the two of them came and insisted on joining me. She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no. So the fact that he mentioned that Mika Brzezinski was bleeding from a facelift has been become the focus of this tirade and temper tantrum by people in the entertainment industry. Teigen's husband, Grammy-winning singer John Legend, wrote, "America elected a very something or other, a person to be president," whereas the White House responded by saying, America elected a fighter, and if you punch the president, he's going to punch back. The public spat between Trump and Morning Joe host began on Thursday morning with the pair mocking the president's healthcare agenda and a reportedly fake Time magazine cover that was on Trump's golf club. Brzezinski doubled down, mocking the fake Time cover and president as lying every day and destroying the country, they said. And so Trump hit back Thursday morning, alleging on Twitter that Scarborough and Brzezinski had tried to enter his New Year's Eve party at his Mar-a-Lago club, but he said no. And he also said he doesn't watch the morning program. First Lady Melania Trump defended her husband, saying, as the First Lady has stated publicly in the past, when her husband gets attacked, he will punch back 10 times harder. Yeah. So if you're gonna attack the president, you better be able to take as much as you give. Responding to questions about President Trump's tweets, White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said the American people elected a fighter. That's what we did. It wasn't long before the celebrity reaction to Trump's tweets began pouring in. Take a look at how Hollywood reacted to President Trump's latest Twitter war with the embassy pundits. Rosie, of course, Mark Ruffalo. Rosie O'Donnell tweeted a couple days before the inauguration that she would fully support a military coup d'etat. That's what she said on Twitter. She would fully support a military coup d'etat if it would prevent Donald Trump from being inaugurated. Leftist fascism. She would fully support a leftist coup d'etat. That's what she said. And of course, that was also about the same time that Madonna said that she had been thinking very, very much about blowing up the White House. And they talk about an atmosphere of violence. So all these people are having trouble, because they cannot stand the fact that America elected someone that they do not approve of. They cannot stand the fact that he's fighting back. Krauthammer compares Trump to Hugo Chavez, like living in a banana republic. He says, Krauthammer is good on some things, but not on everything. Texas defend. Two feds in DACA or will sue, along with 9 other states. DACA is the program that gives a kind of an amnesty, or at least a delayed action on people who were brought in illegally to the United States when they were young children. And Obama instituted this program to help them stay in the United States. And Trump, I think, has not yet made a decision, has he? A 10-state coalition led by Texas Attorney General sent a letter to the Trump administration asking for an end to the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival program. The group threatened to sue if the federal government does not end the program. DACA, put in place by an administrative action under Obama administration, granted temporary legal status and the right to work to millions of young people brought to the U.S. illegally by their parents. We respectfully request that the Secretary of Homeland Security phase out the DACA program. I think it's called DACA. Texas Attorney General General Paxton and the coalition wrote in a letter to U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Just like DACA unilaterally confers eligibility for work authorization and lawful presence without any statutory authorization from Congress. That's right, yeah. And basically, this was Obama making his own law. And Trump is trying to figure out what to do. There are many sad cases. There are many people maybe who grew up without even realizing that they were brought in illegally by their parents. They graduated from high school, and then they try to go to college, and they find that they don't have a Social Security number. And they try to get one, and they can't, because they learn only then that they are in the United States illegally. So there are sad situations created by irresponsible politicians. Created by irresponsible politicians. And now, if Trump decides to do something about it, he will have to take the flak for that. That's a sad situation, but someone is going to have to do this. And Trump happens to be president at a time when this has to get done. Paxton signed the letter along with attorney generals of Alabama, Arkansas, Kansas, Louisiana, Nebraska, South Carolina, Tennessee, Idaho, West Virginia, and the governor of Idaho. The coalition of states urged the federal government to phase out the DACA program by rescinding the 2012 DACA memorandum. The states also request that no new permits be issued under the program and that existing permits not be renewed. They did not request the revocation of existing permits nor the deportation of any person covered by DACA. The letter cites the ruling by Judge Andrew Hannon that blocked the deferred action for parents of Americans after Texas and other states filed suit. Breitbart Texas reported Hannon issued a temporary ban on implementing the executive amnesty program in February 2015. The appellate court upheld Hannon's order, and the Supreme Court declined to hear the case, letting the lower court ruling stand. Earlier this month, Homeland Security John Kelly wiped out former President Obama's DAPA program, Breitbart News reported. The coalition have compared DACA and DAPA, stating the executive branch does not have the unilateral power to confer legal presence and work authorization on unlawfully present aliens simply because the executive chooses not to remove them. Yeah, that's right. It's up to Congress to make laws. It's up to Congress to make laws. The executive office, the president, cannot do that. This was the dictatorial way in which Obama was operating. And the press didn't do anything about it. The press did not criticize him for that way in which he was usurping the constitutional authority of Congress. And even now, Congress doesn't want to act. They don't want to take the heat. And so President Trump now will probably have to take the heat on this. And he's been delaying it. I'm sure he's not too excited about being attacked for one more thing, even though it's the right thing to do. For these same reasons, the DAPA and expanded DACA unilateral executive branch conferred eligibility for lawful presidents. Work authorization was unlawful. The original June 15 DACA memorandum is also unlawful. The letter continues. The original 2012 DACA program covers over 1 million otherwise unlawfully present aliens. It's a tough situation, but I think these people are going to have to return to their countries. Even though they may not speak Spanish, they may have been raised only in English. In many cases, I'm sure that's true. They'll have to go to a country where they have no foundation, they have no job, and they'll have to make the best of it. That's a tough situation. That's a tough situation. But sometimes life is just tough. And I'm afraid that that's what's going to happen, and Obama will have to take the heat for it, but it's the right thing to do. Swimming with sunscreen linked to cancer. Great. A man trapped under four-wheeler attacked by fox. Yeah, always the animal stories with Drudge. Thanks a billion, Drudge report pops to number 2 media traffic, passes Google News, CNN, Fox, New York Times, Washington Post, Huffington, and more. Wow. And Britain says Fox bid for Sky risks giving Murdoch too much power, but it's fit and proper. Bartiromo triggers Podesta. Did you see that? I don't think we have time for it today, but Maria Bartiromo really tore into John Podesta, who is Hillary Clinton's campaign manager for president. And she started talking about his connections to Russia. And Podesta just went berserk. Oh, how can you dare talk about my connections to Russia? But she said, look, you got 75,000 shares of stock in a company that had the Kremlin backing. And he says, no. At first he says he divested himself. In the beginning of the interview, he says, oh, yes, they did, but I divested myself. But then 30 seconds later, he said, no, I never had that to begin with. So he contradicts himself in the interview. It's very interesting to watch. I encourage you to watch it. and it's a good entertainment on Fox News. Anyway, one kudos for Maria Bartiromo, who got that one right. All right, that brings us to the end of today's broadcast. So thank you for joining us. I hope it was informative for you. And let's continue to pray for our King, who is in the Rockies today in Colorado on the final day of his trek there. He will be joining us soon. He's going to take a few days coming back from there, I think, but he'll be joining us soon. So have a good day, and God bless, Godspeed, and may his kingdom come.